Welcome to Step by Step, the podcast where I break it all down. Life, drama, gossip, and everything in between. I'm your host, Taya, and this is my audio journal, filled with stories, reflections, and the kind of tea you won't find anywhere else. Each episode, we will take it step by step, starting with Monday Mindfulness to kickstart your week, diving into the magic of Wednesdays with our main episode, and wrapping up with Your Say Friday, where your stories, questions, and even a little anonymous gossip take center stage. This isn't just my podcast, it's ours. So grab your headphones and take this journey with me, one step at a time. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Step by Step. Today we have a very special guest, Amy. Amy has strong ties to Cocos Island and has also built an incredible brand selling jewelry while also managing social media accounts for influencers and being one herself. She currently resides in Turkey, Cappadocia, where she lives with her partner.
Amazing. Hi.
Hello Amy, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and what has led you to where you are now?
So I guess it started a few years ago, maybe 8 years ago. I was on Cocos and I just picked up a camera and I started from there. I never really knew it was going to be something serious, but then I got into social media and just slowly over time it grew.
Oh, cool. So when did you pick up the camera? What year was that roughly?
I think I would have been about 21, 22. So yeah, it would be about 6 to 8 years ago, roughly. But I first picked up a camera, I think I was about 16. I started with film photography and I started developing film, and then I put it down and picked it up again later on in life.
So was that all in your own hobby time, or did you do any education for that?
I studied it at first at school. It was more just kind of a filler class that I just chose to add in as something fun. And it turned out that I really, really enjoyed it. I liked the technical side of it. I liked learning about something creative. I really was into the creative arts at school. And then, just flourished from there later on in life.
So pretty much you started with photography on animals and stuff, or just Cocos Island itself?
So when I was 16, I started at school, but when I started picking up the camera again, I was just filming the islands. It was kind of more of an influencer style. I guess I was more focused on me being the model and less about the outside world. And I think that that's really flipped on its head now.
How did you do that with you being the model? Did you have to do self-timer and stuff, or?
Well, actually, at the time, I was dating a guy there who was a photographer, and he took a lot of the images of me to start off with. And then it got to a point where I guess I felt like I wanted a specific style that was quite different to what he was doing. So I learnt the technical side of it and started taking photos of myself with self-timer and things like that as well.
Oh, that's really cool. How did you find growing up and having ties to Cocos Island shape your perspective on life?
I think there's a lot of different ways I could look at it, but I guess just being surrounded by nature, being around a lot of creative people. At the time, there was a small community of young people who were also in that industry who were really pushing me and helping me a lot. And then that just grew from there.
So for people that might not know, do you want to explain how you're tied to Cocos Island?
Oh yeah, so my family have a strong tie to Cocos through basically many generations ago. They settled on Cocos and brought a colony of Malaysians over. It's a really long story, but basically they settled there, and it's not directly tied to my family anymore. It's a part of Australia now.
Yeah. That is a really beautiful place that, based on your images, would love to go there one day.
Yeah, you should definitely go. I'm actually going next month. It's one of my favorite places.
You said flights are really hard, hey, once a week, is it?
It's twice a week, yeah. I think at one point during COVID, they might have put a third flight on, but it's twice a week, yeah.
How long's the flight?
It's about 4 hours,
Yeah.
3.5, four, depending on which way you're going.
I'm surprised not many people go that, hey, considering it's quite close by.
Yeah, I think tourism during COVID just really boomed. A lot of things were booked out, and after that, I think tourism has gotten a lot stronger. But yeah, not everyone knows about it, but it's getting there
Yeah,
slowly,
because you always
slowly.
hear people going to Bali and stuff, but I feel like Cocos would probably be much nicer than Bali anyway.
I agree. I think Kyrgyz is way better than Bali.
Is it quite expensive there?
It is a little bit more expensive, yes, but at the end of the day, it's because it's a tropical island. It's in the middle of nowhere, so you're getting that remoteness and getting food and supplies and everything up there. It's much more difficult.
Yeah. So, what drew you to Turkey, and how is living in a different culture influence your mindset and change your perspective?
This one's actually quite huge because although I had developed my career prior to moving to Turkey, I think moving to Turkey really expanded my eye a lot because I traveled, I think, to 12 or more countries in the last 2 years since I moved to Turkey. And a lot of them are Islamic or Muslim countries. And it really expanded my eye on culture,
Yeah.
on respect, on just seeing the world for what it is rather than what you see in the news. I just feel like it's not always the case. I feel like there's a lot of power on social media. There's also a lot of power in the media, and it shaped my view on creativity a lot. On top of that, I met a lot of other creative people who are far more advanced than the people I'm surrounded by in Australia and who've had to work a lot harder to get to where they are. I think Australia is quite behind when it comes to just everything compared to places like the US and even Europe and stuff like that. So it's shaped me probably the biggest in the last 2 years compared to the 4 to 6 years prior to that.
Yeah, so you definitely get a lot more opportunities to learn from people around you, as well as the life experience, which teaches you so much in general.
Yes, definitely.
What made you choose Turkey specifically?
So I was on a Europe trip and I met a man. I met him at the hotel that I was staying at. But what drew me to Turkey at first was just that it's off the beaten path. You've got Europe as a whole, and Turkey is kind of the middle of it's kind of half Europe, half Middle Eastern.
Yeah.
And I just heard such great things. You got the balloons where I stayed in Cappadocia, and the balloons are really beautiful. They're just amazing. I just really was intrigued by going somewhere a little bit off the beaten path compared to Europe, a little bit different. But yeah, I stayed there because I met a man who is also in this industry who shared a lot with me, and I currently live there to this day because of that reason.
Do you see yourself moving back at any stage or?
I see myself doing both, I guess, but it's really hard with me because I'm just such a spontaneous person, and although I have such a strong tie to Sam, and I think wherever I go, he will go, and likewise, life is just full of opportunities, and I never know where I'm going to end up. But
Yes.
I would really like to do both.
Yeah, so you're very much into basically wherever life takes you, you'll follow. No restrictions or anything.
Exactly.
Can you explain a little bit on how the cultural differences that you might not have been aware of, maybe naive to, compared to Australia?
I definitely had a few cultural shocks. It was really challenging. I actually did experience quite a lot of depression because I felt like this unfamiliarity. No one likes change,
Yeah.
and you're forced to kind of conform in a way. I had to change how I dressed. I mean, I didn't have to. It's one of those things that you're left with a choice, and I'm in a very touristy area. So I can get away with wearing whatever I want, really. But as a respect thing to the culture, you have to watch what you wear. You also really have to change the way you treat others as well, depending on the culture there. There's certain things like just being a really good host is such a huge part of their culture. If someone comes into your house, offering them food, offering them drink, making sure they feel really welcome, and just really putting that extra effort in. Whereas I find in Western cultures, it's not really like that. You know, you see someone for an hour, you split the bill,
Yeah.
It's very much like a transactional sort of arrangement between friends and family. Whereas in these cultures, it's very much like everyone is a family. There's so much more effort put into these relationships and friendships. Even
Almost
the person at the store, you know.
yeah, like warmth or something. I know that with my culture, as soon as you walk in, you're offered a drink as well, or food, or there's always something on the table. It's almost like if you say no, you're almost insulting them for saying no. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really depends because in Turkey you're not supposed to say yes on the first go. So I think it's by the third time. So it's kind of like a dance. It's like, would you like food? Oh no 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 no. Would you like food? Oh no no no. No, please have some food. And they, oh okay, yes, I will.
Yeah, I've heard something similar about when somebody offers you money. It might have been in an Asian country though. Also on the third go, someone will offer you money like, here, have $50 for your birthday or something, and you say no, no. Same thing like the third time, then you can accept it. But before the third time, it's considered rude almost.
Yeah, and this was such a big culture shock for me because I'm very much what you see is what you get in personality. Like I think I just give how I feel straight up, and that's just not as normal in their culture. I mean, you can even see I've developed this hand thing with how I talk because in their culture it's very handsy, whereas I never used to do that.
It's very cute though. But that's
Like
cool
more
that
passionate.
you are adapting because you've been living there for how long now?
To well, on and off for about 2.5 years.
So, how did you overcome uncomfortableness that you experienced through having to adjust and kind of find your new self, if you want to say that?
I think it took some time. There was a bit of a period where I definitely fell into this, like, I don't know if I can do this mentality, but I've always really embraced the uncomfortability of any situation. And I really pride myself on not giving in to a challenge. And I just took it as like, how many times in your life, even if you can't stay here forever, even if this doesn't work out, how many times in your life can you say, I got to live and experience this kind of a life? So many people don't get to do that. So I just kind of kept saying to myself, yes, you're going to feel down sometimes. Yes, you're going to struggle. Not every day is going to be easy, but I just wanted to embrace it while I was there because I would regret it if I didn't. So that voice really helped me. But if we're talking about positive habits, I definitely think eating right, I started exercising more. I I think calling more people that know me well and just reaching out to them, having plans that made me feel excited, journaling. I did everything I could think of.
I know that it is very important. Like, obviously, as humans, we experience uncomfortable situations and they often come with change. Once we've had a change in our lives, it is excitement, but it's also uncomfortable because we're not used to all these feelings and it's not familiar to us. So I think that where people might go wrong is they'll be like, okay, this is too uncomfortable, let me push back and I'm going to go back to Perth, for example. Or, in different situations, something might happen. And by acknowledging your discomfort and sitting through that and working a new way of living or making that your new familiar, I think is very important. So that's really good that you were able to do that. And you said that was through a lot of different techniques. You mentioned that journaling is a big part of your life. Have you got any tips or layouts that you do journaling or examples? Do you write lists or do you write down paragraphs?
I kind of compartmentalize it. So I have one journal for work and I have one journal for emotions. And I put on the front of one side the positives. Sorry, on my personal one, I put on the top side the positive journals, and on the back is kind of like my fears, my anxiety, trying to figure out where my mind is, and then trying to shape that into a new mentality. I find compartmentalizing it way easier. It's kind of like seeing a different person. You know how you have someone that maybe you feel safer to talk about your negatives with, maybe it's your mom or something. It's like a space you go into to go, I want to feel this and I want to move through it. For business, I find definitely lists. I'm a tick it off kind of girl. Like I love that feeling.
I'm the same. To-do lists, I make like 10 lists a day. But that's really cool, the whole positive side and negative side, because I never actually would have thought to do that myself. Usually when I journal, or if I journal, I just write down as if I'm talking to biography or like basically a novel kind of thing, which does take a lot of time, and your hand ends up really hurting afterwards because you've been writing for so long. It is important to learn what you are fearful of so that you can actually overcome that. Sometimes you don't know what you're fearful of, and by writing it down and thinking it out loud, or saying it, just putting it into the 3D realm, or the third dimension, can really make you face that.
Exactly. Sometimes I think with emotions, people don't realize you have to go through it to get over it. That's the thing. You can't avoid how you feel. It will always be there. And I find writing it down acknowledges it, but then acknowledging it and then flipping to the other side and going, okay, but what are the positives that I can see in this? Because yeah, you have to acknowledge your fears. We all have them. No one's immune to human emotion.
Yes.
You can't have the positives without the negatives.
Yeah. And definitely important to not suppress them, because I think when you do suppress them, then you really just don't deal with them and you bottle them up. So just bringing them to light, it doesn't have to be to a person, but it can be to a person too. So what do you think about actual journals, like those guided ones, the ones that ask you questions and stuff?
I have one and I really, really like it. I can't remember the name of it. It's somewhere here, but I'm trying to remember what it is. I don't know. I've been posting it all over my social media, but I really like it because it separates between morning and night, and it kind of sets you up for the morning. Going, how do you feel this morning? So you come into your body and your mind, and you understand where you are. What do you look forward to? And then at the end of the day, you come back and you see what you were looking forward to, and you kind of review like what was the most important part of your day, positive or negative. What's something big that you want to remember today? And it could be anything, like, I don't know, someone almost hit me with their car, like, which hasn't happened to me, touch wood, but, and then you review, like, how did that make you feel and stuff like that. And I think it's just a good marker to get out of, again, avoiding how you feel. And then you can go back through and you can mark, where have I come from? What have I developed? And even just remembering what your day to day was like. I just like it because it just makes me think in my emotional sense.
It really takes you out of yourself for a minute, just to observe yourself from like an outsider's point of view.
Yeah.
So you prioritize meaningful connections and experiences. I know that you've said that before, that you don't have time for people that don't do you any good, which I think is like a good thing to have those boundaries. And I just wanted to ask, how did you develop that mindset? And do you have any advice for someone that might be struggling to set healthy boundaries for themselves?
I think it's kind of similar to the journaling. It's taking time to think, how do you feel around this person? And that's not just on any given day, like, oh, today I'm not feeling good, because we're all human. But it's seeing how you feel after every interaction, after a period of time, and go, do I go away feeling like fulfilled? Do I feel good? Do I feel supported? Do I feel loved? And if the answer to most of those things is no, a majority of the time, that relationship is just not worth, it's not worth your time. You have a limited amount of time in your life. And it's being honest with yourself about that. But the other thing is, it's important to check yourself and think, how am I giving in this relationship as well? And I think the good thing about setting boundaries is it's like a guideline for them to be a good friend and for you to be a good friend. It's setting up a base for that. I think if people can see boundaries as a good thing and not a selfish thing, it's
Yeah.
healthier for you. I don't know if you know the mindset, the saying, you put the mask on yourself before you put the mask on someone else, because at the end of the day, you have to be in that positive mindset for them to also give back to you. It's just setting up that oxygen for that relationship and telling them what you need
Yeah.
for them
No.
to be able to match that.
Yeah. So obviously in relationships, everybody has something to give to another person. So I feel like it might be seen as selfish sometimes or, one-sided, but I think it's only one-sided when there's too much on one side rather than the other. So in that situation, it's kind of not balanced. Almost like give a little, take a little, but you have that balance between how much you take is how much you give as well.
I think it's also, at the end of the day, the way that I see relationships and the way that I see my ability to give and take, it's like, say I'm venting to someone,
Yeah.
I then go, okay, I've spoken my piece. Thank you so much for letting me share. I want to open the space for you to share as well so that you feel like I can support you. Or if you can't in that moment and you're overwhelmed, saying something like, right now I'm not really myself. I really appreciate you, but in the future I want to make sure that you feel safe to come to me as well. It's just creating that balance and making sure that someone feels valued and feel like they can give back. And that's the thing, like, I think it's just being aware of yourself and being aware of others.
In a situation where it comes to boundaries, could you give some examples of your boundaries that you might have set up for yourself, like where your standards might lie and what might cross your boundaries?
Oh, it takes a lot for someone to cross a boundary for me. Recently, actually, now that I think of this, I have had to say a few times, unless it's like a really big deal and it's something that will really affect everything, I prefer not to know about drama because that's something I've only recently implemented. I think for a long time, because of TV shows and all these different things, I used to feed off it a few years ago. I'd be like, oh, like, what's their drama? What's their drama? Because I was comparing myself and thinking, oh, well, I feel better if they're going through something that makes me feel better about myself. But I came to realize, actually, no, learning about all of this drama made me look out for problems in everyone's lives, my life, and that's not the mindset I wanted to have. So, with my close friends, I tend to say, like, unless it's a need to know basis or it's a big thing, like a pregnancy or, like, I don't know, a breakup or something that, like, will impact my life, I've just asked that maybe I don't really need to know that. I don't need to know other people's business.
If you need a friend, you're there, kind of thing.
Exactly. If they need me because they're hurting, I'm there. But if it's just mindless gossip, I just don't really feel the need to know it anymore.
Yeah, it just becomes almost like a toxic habit to seek it out and, yeah, compare as well. Obviously, on social media, similarly, like there is a lot of comparison. And do you find that it's hard to not compare yourself on social media? And how did you overcome those kind of thoughts?
I definitely feel like comparing on social media is a big thing. Even if I like to think that it's not for myself, it definitely is. Whether that's other creators who I feel like have gone further than me, or I don't know, even a hot girl who has like a tiny waist. I'm like, damn, I wish that was me.
That's why it is so successful because of its comparisons.
Yes, it's addictive. You're feeding that part of yourself that's going, I'm not good enough, and then looking for something to fill that gap, whether it's, I don't know, shopping or going to the gym extra or, all these different things. But how have I overcome it? I have this rule with myself, and I've been implementing it for my partner as well. Not so much as a rule, but as a reassurance, is you only compare yourself to you. So compare yourself to 5 years ago you, 2 years ago you, and 2 years ahead of yourself you. How far have you come and where do you want to go? And that's the thing, is we spend too much of our time comparing ourselves to others, but we don't know their situation. We don't know what they go through. It's a waste of time. And that's easier said than done, for sure. But I find if you, every time you catch yourself going, oh, I'm not as good as them, or, oh, they're probably richer than me or happier than me, it's just going, hey, no, you don't know about their life. You don't know what they're going through. Compare yourself to you. And that goes back to journaling. You can write down, what are my fears? What am I comparing myself to? And then flip it around and go, but how far have I actually come? What are the positives?
Yeah. Can you just explain your job role a little bit more in depth? Because obviously you work with social media. What specifically are you doing on social media?
So I do a lot of different things. I would say that social media isn't my main job. It's
Yeah.
kind of just a plus. I'm a videographer and a photographer. I do this for all different kinds of people. I've done anything from couples to hotels. I've worked with probably over, I reckon, almost 50 hotels. I think most of my income comes from client base, and then the social media is just an addition to that. It just comes in every now and then. That's kind of more of a sporadic kind of income.
So you branch into everything really. So you do videos and photography and you manage social media platforms too?
No, I don't do that anymore. I think the first year that I was in this industry, I did, but I actually usually refuse to. It's a great way to make money,
Yeah.
but it's a very rhythmic sort of thing. I'm open to it for the right client. It's just I feel like I'd prefer to be in one space and I could go in regularly and give them the right advice.
That would be quite time consuming to do it all as well. And I think just managing your own social media platform is quite challenging anyway.
It requires a routine, I think. It, I think since I've been traveling so much and I work with so many different clients from around the world and there's different schedules and a lot of emails, it's more difficult to find a schedule that fits everything. So I'm very free based off what the client needs. Like, do you want to travel to Thailand next week? Do you want to go here? Do you want to do that? And that makes it really difficult to do something like run a social media platform, which requires being online for a minimum amount of hours every day, making sure that they're getting what they need.
How would a client find you? Is it usually through email or Instagram, or you have your own website as well?
I did have a website, but I'm actually in the process of remaking it.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, most people find me through social media, word of mouth. It's usually social media.
When a client might touch base with you, if they want to go somewhere like you said, Thailand, would they then pay for you to go there as well, or how would that work?
Yeah, everyone's different. I find nowadays I don't take unpaid jobs, which we call pro bono or a contra deal. I don't really take them anymore, but generally speaking, they'll usually reach out to me. They'll say, hey, we want this, this, and this. What is your budget? And then I'll send them a proposal, which then they come back to me and they go, oh, either that money's good or, oh, we can offer this or blah, 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 blah. It's a negotiation process. And then they'll fly me out there, or that'll be a part of the deal. And then I'll finish the job and come back.
So, how did you learn all of this, or did you learn as you went along and made your own boundaries?
A lot of trial and error
Yeah.
and a lot of YouTube, a lot of courses, a lot of reading. It's kind of one of those things that it's up to you, so you build on it. I have 2 degrees from uni, so I have a business degree, a psych degree, and that really helped me to learn how to learn on my own time.
Yeah.
This year that's just gone, actually, I spent a lot of my time researching and learning a new video making software. I went from Premiere Pro to DaVinci, and DaVinci is kind of like the I don't know, like one of the most advanced video making software.
Yeah.
And it's just always improving. So yeah, I've learned everything in so many different ways. But in the business side of things, I think that that's something I'm still perfecting every day. But I would definitely say now that I feel the confidence within myself to give the client what they deserve and what they need, the confidence has really helped me to gain respect from a lot of clients.
What kind of clients do you find yourself getting more of?
Yeah, so for example, one of my biggest clients, or like one of my retainers at the moment, I've got two. One is Oppo, which is the third leading phone brand in Australia, and they've become, yeah, so that's one of my bigger clients at the moment. And then I also have a brand called Lulex, which is a camera bag accessory brand. I think they're from Germany. They're amazing. I love them so much. They're like family to me. And that's the good thing about being in this industry is you just develop those relationships with people that just keeps tumbling.
And it would be trust as well.
Yeah, exactly.
How many clients would you normally take on at the same time?
That totally depends, honestly. I've been so lucky that most of my clients have come just after each other. But generally speaking, if I was going to go to a country on my own money, I will try and take on at least one, two, three different brands with me, paying clients or onboarding clients so that the trip is paid for and I'm making money on top of that.
So, how do you balance being present in your day-to-day life while also spending a lot of time, filming or taking photos and just being on social media and stuff?
I think I definitely try to prioritize having some mindfulness in my everyday. I'm not always good at that. If I'm in the middle of a job, like I'm working for a hotel or whatever, it's very, very go, go, go. There's no time for rest. But generally, if I'm in the editing phase of all my clients, I try to exercise every day, at least 5 to 6 days a week. And I really implement a lot of infrared saunas and ice baths into my routine, probably 2 to 3 days a week. I find that's really, really good for my body and my mind.
What kind of benefits do you see out of the infrared saunas?
I'm quite a highly anxious person. I definitely find in this industry what I struggle with is making sure, I guess, knowing that a client needs something and knowing that I can't spend every minute of every day editing and you need to give yourself breaks. I struggle to calm my mind down and think, you should just do it, you should just do it.
Yeah.
And so I find infrared saunas and ice baths really help me to calm that self talk and that self uh, negative chatter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also helps me sleep a lot. The infrared sauna, I find, makes me sleep so good that night. And the ice bath definitely, definitely helps with anxiety.
Yeah, ice baths are pretty crazy. Hey, did you struggle at the start or?
No, weirdly, I find it relatively easy. When I say easy, it's a challenge, but I'm pretty good at challenges, generally speaking.
Yeah. So when it comes to, I'm going to bring it back to social media a little bit, but when it comes to social media, do you ever find yourself like mindlessly scrolling?
Not anymore. I actually have to force myself to go on it to find sounds, find trends, stuff like that, which I'm trying to get myself to do again at the moment. I've
Yeah.
managed to grow a lot of my social media based off trending sounds and just following an algorithm. It does
Yeah.
get to a point where you start to feel like it's a bit of a rat race on social media, and I lost a lot of my inspiration with that. But now I'm trying to make sure I move forward in that way. It's such a great way to market yourself.
Because it's always changing as well. How do you keep up with the algorithms?
Well, if I'm honest, it really is dependent on, for example, Instagram, it's dependent on them. There was a period of time where everyone was growing. It just went crazy. I think when Meta started to change, it changed to Meta, and they were basically just throwing views at everyone. And then now it's kind of plateaued again, but then there'll probably be another spike. So it's just looking out for those times to really put the energy in. And there's such a difference between high quality content and trending content. I can post a video that I know will go viral, but it won't get me any work and it won't get me any clients because it's just an iPhone video. At the moment, I think a lot of people are addicted to this dopamine that comes, or the serotonin that comes with scrolling and with Instagram, but the value is not very high. And yeah, it's one of those things. And as I get older and as I get more advanced, I have more respect, not necessarily based on a following by someone, but their skill set.
Yeah.
And I personally put more preference towards that in my own social media nowadays. It's not about gaining a lot of followers for me anymore.
Yeah. I feel like also if you're mindlessly scrolling through, you get the opportunity to see a lot of perhaps triggers that you might not want to that then influence your day. Like, you might see something and then it just kind of sets your thinking towards the rest of the day. Like it could just be like one negative thing or one thing that might shock you in a way. You might not have seen it any other time, but just because you've been mindlessly scrolling, you've come across it by accident.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Social media can be a very toxic space if you're not careful.
Yeah, but it can also be very positive, I guess. Like you said, it's a great platform to manage your business, and also you can find a lot of inspiration from it.
Yeah, for sure.
So you have done a lot of solo travel yourself. Do you have any advice for someone that might consider doing it themselves?
I definitely think do your research. There's some countries I wouldn't go to alone.
Yeah.
But it is also a very safe environment out there if you make the right steps. Definitely do some research. Also, find groups, find people that you can meet up with. I did a trip in Ireland on my own for 2 weeks, and I went actually with the intention of not talking to anybody. It was probably the loneliest I've ever felt in my life. And it was good for me because I learned how to appreciate so many aspects of my life. But it was very lonely, like very, very lonely.
Why did you choose to do no talking to anyone?
There was a few reasons. I was filming a YouTube video which I haven't released yet
Yeah.
for a few different reasons, but I I just wanted to see how it would feel because I've seen so many inspirational people who've crossed the ocean for 3 months or sailed, different places and they talk about it and stuff like that. And I was like, that's so cool. Maybe, 2 weeks is nothing. But surprisingly, it is very lonely. It was just about the challenge of being. I went into it thinking I was going to talk about why being alone is less lonely, but then it turned out that I was very lonely and I didn't really know how to facilitate that into a YouTube video. I will because I need to be honest about it and talk about it, but I just haven't gone through all that footage yet.
Was that long ago or?
It was last year.
Okay. Do you think that if you were to do it again, you might have a different perspective on that or?
Definitely. I think now that I know what it's like, I think I wouldn't avoid all people. I would probably, I went through towns that were doing these tour groups and all these different things. And I was like, oh, no, I think it's just easier for me to be on my own and just keep going on my own. But it did get to a point where I started to go a bit crazy. I was like, oh my God, I'm so lonely.
Yeah. That also might depend on personality as well, do you think? Because some people are probably more introverted and like their own space, whereas other people, I don't know what you would classify yourself as.
I think I'm kind of a bit of both. It definitely does depend on the person. I think it's so different as well driving a van because I was driving something like 6 or 7 hours a day and you have to get fuel on your own, cook on your own, find somewhere to sleep on your own, and
Yeah.
then you're basically doing everything. And I traveled the whole of Ireland. I did a whole lap in two
That's
weeks.
that's really cool though, and actually very brave to do.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was. I wouldn't say it was scary, but it was definitely. It was a challenge. It was definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
I'm glad I did it. It just wasn't what I expected because I do love being alone. So I was thinking, I'm going to be so empowered. But by the end of it, I was like, I need people. I need my people.
Yeah. Do you think that's also because maybe like that was a time of your life where you maybe needed people, whereas another time in your life you might just need to disappear from people? Do you know what I mean? Sometimes we've had too much socialization that we just want to retract, and other times we're like, okay, maybe I need to meet someone.
I definitely think at that time in my life, because I was living in Turkey and it was the beginning of last year, I believe. And I was surrounded by people who didn't speak the same language as me. So it did feel very isolating and I felt very alone. The reason why I'm grateful for this trip was because I went, okay, I'm going to go to a country where everyone speaks English so I can get around, but then I can be on my own and just kind of discover myself. I realized even if you have friends or people around you who can't communicate with you verbally, doesn't mean that they don't love and care for you, and it doesn't mean that they don't make you feel loved and feel supported. And it made me appreciate having someone in Turkey than having no one in another country.
So you it almost was like a comparison, there was a contrast there between going somewhere with no ability to communicate because you choose not to, and then going to a country where you can't communicate, but there's that comparison there where you have that support in one place, regardless of whether there's talking or not. That's quite,
Definitely.
yeah, quite interesting that you did that. So, where would you say is probably the scariest place you've been to?
Egypt. Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Egypt, I'd say. Or I went to Socotra, which is off Yemen, which is a war-torn country.
Yeah.
And that was pretty scary because we had a cyclone blow through. The people themselves and the space are so safe and so lovely, but that was probably the closest. And it was during the war
Yeah.
on, I think, on Ukraine and Syria. And there was just so much going on around Yemen. Yemen was also bombing, I think,
Right.
somewhere. A lot of politics going on during that time. Egypt, I feel like I went to Cairo and to see the pyramids and for I think one of my friend's birthdays, and it was just I wouldn't go to Cairo on my own. Some people have. I have friends who have gone on their own and they love it, but I personally, a lot of the girls didn't feel particularly safe in Cairo on their own. It depends on where you go in Egypt.
So what are your favorite places that you've gone to?
I mean, Cocos is always going to be one.
Yeah.
Turkey is definitely up there. Italy is one of my favorite countries in the world. I just love Italy. I love the Dolomites. I've traveled. Italy's my most traveled country. I love Thailand. I love Thailand more than Indonesia. Just love so many different countries. I've traveled a lot of Europe. I haven't been to the US yet, which is very interesting. I'm trying to think. Yeah, the list is about 25 countries long, which actually isn't a lot compared to some people that I know who've traveled to 70 or more.
Would you ever think about going to somewhere like Antarctica or something if you can go there?
Yes, I've actually been looking into it. I've been thinking about that. It's funny that you mentioned that. Yeah, I've definitely been keen to. I really want to go to Iceland as well. That's such a beautiful space, like place to go to.
Do you prefer like when you go to go more like summer countries or winter countries?
I think because I grew up going to a lot of Asian countries, I prefer winter countries. Well, actually, that's really hard because I prefer summer in general,
Yeah.
but I'm definitely feeling cold to the snow. I want to go to Japan this year. I want to go to Iceland, so I'm really feeling cold to the colder countries at the moment. I was in Cappadocia when it was snowing. It's snowing there at the moment. It's covered in snow in Cappadocia
Oh,
at the moment.
air balloons still run there? No.
Yeah, they do. Not every day, but when they can. Apparently, it's really beautiful. Actually, no, I don't even say apparently. It is beautiful. I've seen it.
So tell me more about Cappadocia then, and where you're living because I've seen. I mean, you've showed me some photos, and that's absolutely breathtaking.
Okay, so I live in a town called Gorema. Cappadocia is made up of five different kind of towns, and Cappadocia means land of beautiful horses. So it's really based off horses, but then you've got the fairy caves, the fairy chimney caves, and then you have the balloons that go up every morning. They only go up in the morning, they don't go up at night, except for sometimes in winter. Just a really beautiful hub. It's right in the middle of Turkey. So you've got Europe is on the top of Turkey, and then you've got Syria and all of the other kind of Middle Eastern countries are on the bottom, and then you've got Russia kind of like up on the side.
Yeah.
So yeah, so and then you've got Greece kind of on the other side of the ocean, which you can actually take a boat from Turkey to Greece out of some areas.
Yeah. Cool.
Greece and Turkey, like Greeks and Turkish people are kind of the same, similar people, and the food is very similar, but they don't really love each other. Like if I meet a Greek and I say that I live in Turkey, they're like, "Oh, no."
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't love each other.
You do say those similarities. It's just like Europe is so close to everything, really.
It's very handy living there because everything is so close.
Yeah, especially like compared to Australia, you'll drive hours to get to a different city in WA, whereas in Europe, you'll go through like however many countries in that time.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what are some small and impactful changes you think people could make to their lives to be more mindful? Just simple things that people can start off with.
I do think journaling is helpful, reading is helpful. If everyone is different, you know what I mean? Like expanding your mind, travel, it really depends. If you're working a 9 to 5, I think it really benefits people waking up earlier, eating healthy, exercise. If you're living a more lavish or crazy, unpredictable lifestyle like me, it's just finding any kind of balance you can and just trying to practice mindfulness in general. I definitely try to do at least one thing a day that's mindful, whether it's journaling, whether it's going for a 10-minute walk, just anything like that.
Yeah. So do you experience much burnout with what you do?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Yeah, actually, yeah, recently. And I find burnout just keeps going.
So you don't find a like pause to it kind of thing in your field, really?
No,
Have you
you just get used to it. You
like
roll with it.
yeah. If you could leave listeners with one piece of wisdom, what would it be?
I guess going back to the comparison thing, just compare yourself to you, not to others. That would probably be the biggest advice that I would give. And create healthy boundaries within yourself and with others.
Yeah, that is very important, I think, because a lot of people do struggle with boundaries, and it is really hard to even realize that you need boundaries sometimes. Like sometimes it's kind of too far gone before you realize, okay, I need to put these boundaries up for myself. All right, so that brings us to the end of the questions. Did you want to talk about anything else just to sum it up?
I guess just leaving on the message that mindfulness is such an important key attribute to everyone's everyday life, but that's a choice. I
Yeah.
think if we look at the interview as a whole, it's choosing yourself and choosing to learn about yourself. And that's your responsibility to pull yourself forward and challenge yourself. Definitely. It's the same with Ireland. If I hadn't gone and I hadn't experienced that, I wouldn't know a lot of the things that I know about myself now.
Yeah, you got to step out of your comfort zone to grow, really.
Definitely. I think that's the biggest message I can give is just step out of your comfort zone. You have one life, you know what I mean? Like you just need
Like,
to try.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. That leads us to the end of today's episode. Thank you so much, Amy, for being here today and sharing your life and experiences with us. I look forward to doing more interviews with you all and sharing more stories with you. I can't wait for what's to come. Thank you so much for listening. Like, subscribe, all of that. Until next time, see you later.